So I think we all should ask ourselves what we want out of music, and that won't be the same thing between people. There's no such thing as music. We all have our own relationships to sound worlds and what we want to do with them, what draws us to them, and stuff like that. For me, the interesting thing has always been learning about it, exploring it, rather than, at times I've taken pride in my mastery over some particular area of it, but I think what happens is people develop a mastery of a certain area of exploring sound worlds and then declare that that's music and try to rationalize other interpretations of what is a sound world out of it. And I've done that myself. However, I've always grown dissatisfied with that. When I was young, I got bored of rock and roll. This is in high school, and it's like, damn, these same triads all the time, or whatever, whatever. It's like you just feel sort of like meh, and and then got into jazz, and several years later, I kind of felt the same way about jazz. It's like, well, I know this stuff. I'm not really feeling I'm learning as much anymore, And so that's the thing that, and I think musicians should think about this, is like, when was this the most fun for you? Some people get great fun out of knowing it all and having this ordered world and functioning within it, and cool, that's great. Someone like me, not so much. I'm more excited when I don't really know what there is, when I'm finding stuff out. And this thing that comes to mind with that is from the Tao. It's that part. Banish wisdom and discard knowledge, and the people will be benefited 100-fold. I can't remember all the rest of it, but I've always liked that as advice. It doesn't mean be stupid, and it doesn't mean be ignorant, but it does, to me anyway, mean get rid of that whole a priori kind of context and generate your own one around it, So for me, what is harmony isn't, well, you take these, these notes and arrange them in these ways, and, read your Walter Piston and study all these things, or Schoenberg or whatever. And that's, early on in my life, yes, that was harmony to me. That was all I understood about it. But as time goes by, it's like harmony is the coexistence of different sounds, as relating mostly to pitch in the harmony case. But I believe Messiaen said that harmony is timbre, or timbre, if you will. I don't like I don't like saying timbre in the middle of a sentence in American English, so I call it timbre. And to me, it's more about that. It's like traditional, conventional academic harmony just really ignores so much about it, of what's interesting about exploring this. It's not that we have to reinvent the wheel every time we go driving. Still in my harmony, there's fifths and there's sevenths or something like that. And, There's a whole world of thirds. Um, and there are scales, and there are, you know, oh, what would I call them? There's tonal fields, and you derive things from these fields of pitches, you know, pitch sets. But there's no reason whatsoever to think that there's anything more legitimate about a pre-established one than a non-pre-established one. It's where's the fun in that? You know, it's kind of, to me, for me personally, and this, you know, doesn't need to apply to anybody else, but for me personally, working with this as the whole field of harmony is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, as they say. You know, it's man, we've done this over and over and over again, and this is all we got. You know, like if what we were making as music was so great, I'd understand the loyalty to the template, you know, that this offers. But I don't think it is. I mean, going back 100 years ago, you had Bartok and Stravinsky, and Debussy had just died, and, you know, Schoenberg, for those that like that sort of thing, and jazz was just beginning, and, you know, like, so who cares about throwing this away so much, because there was so much that we didn't know how to do with this at that time. Like, it was expanding and really interesting. I haven't felt that to be true in my lifetime. I felt like, you know, this is more like cut and dried, and all kinds of brilliant people have explored and examined it, and, like, you know, by the time you get to like the 80s and 90s, it's really like squeezing the last bit out of the sponge, you know? And so I think it would behoove musicians who wish to be creative and forward-looking, and it's not really about the forward-looking thing. It's, I mean, that sort of sounds elitist, and like, that's like trying to be better than someone else, and that's not really the point. It's wanting to be in the position of discovering things. And you can't discover things if you bind your world, you know? If the earth is flat, you can't go around it. And stuff like that. You know, if there's a predetermined set of rules about things, like, you're gonna get to the limit of that at some point in time. And then you have no choice but to, like, kind of reaffirm those limits as you do things. And so, yeah, it's what we want from it. If we want that, you know, like, if you want to be limited to, equal temperament and diatonic stuff, like, and just get it tighter and tighter, well, there you got your Bach land, and it's very tight and very well organized within this thing. You want to, you know, go to, the later phase of that, you would choose Webern, you know, because again, it's very tight and very organized within this system, and it's, you know, and if that appeals to you, great, and you'll probably make some really good music if you have that kind of discipline and that sort of rigor around what you do. But there's no reason that has to be how you come into music. You know, if you come into music from, wow, that sounds cool, instead of, I want to, like, make this thing. I don't know really how to describe that. But if you want it to be stimulating your curiosity instead of your expertise, then chances are, like, the tradition from Bach to Webern will feel more like you're getting put in a box than that you're exploring the unknown world.